July 27, 2025, Oslo, Norway. In a quiet room at the heart of Scandinavia, the world's most prestigious peace committee released a short list of 5 names. But one name stopped the world in its tracks. Ibrahim Traoré, interim president of Burkina Faso. He is not a career politician. He did not rise through elite institutions. He came to power not through elections but through conviction. And now, in an unexpected twist of history, he stands as the frontrunner for the 2023 Nobel Peace Prize. What makes this story powerful is not controversy. It is clarity. In an age of photo ops and diplomacy as theater, Traoré chose something ancient: labor, sacrifice, and truth. His battlefield was hunger, his revolution to fight poverty, educate students, empower women, and uplift farmers. How did a 36-year-old soldier from one of the world's poorest countries become a global symbol of peace? This is a historic moment. For the first time, a leader under 40 from Africa, who came to power through a military coup, has been officially recognized as a serious contender for one of the world's most respected honors. The Nobel Committee praised Traoré as a rare figure in today's world, not someone who spreads hatred or chases power for himself, but a leader who took up arms only to defend the soul of his people. The peace he is building in Burkina Faso does not come from political deals or international agreements, but from the deep shared will of a nation determined to live with dignity and independence. Traoré's journey from soldier to statesman defines a new kind of peace, one forged in the fields and villages, not in the halls of power. This nomination surprised many. It challenged long-held beliefs about leadership, peace, and governance in the 21st century. It sparked global conversations from the busy streets of Ouagadougou to the power corridors of Washington, Paris, and Moscow. But the real story behind this nomination lies in the incredible transformation Traoré has led in Burkina Faso since taking power in September 2022. Since taking power on September 29, 2022, Ibrahim Traoré has led reforms that shook not only Burkina Faso but echoed across Africa and the world. His strategy is radical yet grounded in basic logic: peace through self-reliance. One of his most remarkable achievements was the reconciliation of more than 12,000 armed militants, not with force but through community healing, job training, and reintegration programs. Instead of continuing cycles of violence, Traoré worked to mend wounds and help former fighters become contributing citizens. In a bold move to reclaim economic control, Traoré gave 388 million hectares of farmland, once seized by foreign corporations, back to local farmers. The message was clear: the land belongs to the hands that farm it, not to far-off investors. Perhaps most ambitiously, Traoré launched the Sahel Life Alliance, a regional partnership between Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali focused on restoring the environment. Together, they have planted 800 million trees across the dry Sahel region, creating hope in the fight against climate change and desertification. Fiscal responsibility is also a key part of his leadership. Traoré slashed government spending by 60%, cutting bloated bureaucracy and redirecting the money toward the foundations of society, education, and healthcare. In just 18 months, Burkina Faso built 2,400 new schools and 700 healthcare centers, an unmatched pace in the region. Understanding the link between food and learning, Traoré also ensured that 95% of rural primary school children get free lunches made with locally grown food, creating a cycle that boosts both education and agriculture. In a final groundbreaking move on May 4, 2025, Traoré pardoned 1,100 former militants and brought them into the Farmers of Peace program, an initiative praised by the United Nations as a global model for reintegration. These accomplishments reflect a vision of leadership far removed from hollow words. They represent a real lived version of peace, rooted in dignity, labor, and unity. But there is another key moment. On July 1, 2025, during the Feast of All Saints, an unexpected voice rose from the heart of the Vatican. Pope Leo XV, famous for his unshakable stand on social justice, took a moment to highlight Ibrahim Traoré. His words carried centuries of spiritual weight, yet spoke the language of humble work and solidarity. When I pray for peace, the Pope said, the face of a young soldier from Burkina Faso comes to mind. He does not preach with laws or scriptures, but with sweat and soil. He has never walked through Rome's churches, yet he acts as if the world's poor are his sanctuary. This declaration was not just symbolic, it was historic. It was the first time the Holy See officially endorsed a sitting African leader for the Nobel Peace Prize. The Vatican's formal nomination of Traoré sent waves through diplomatic circles across the globe. It cast his leadership not only as political, but as a moral and spiritual fight against injustice and hopelessness. For a pope to support someone who came to power through a military coup, challenged long-held ideas about power and redemption. It shifted the conversation from abstract diplomacy to grounded action, where peace is planted in fields, not debated in boardrooms. This papal endorsement elevated Traoré from a regional figure to a global icon. It forced the world to rethink what peace really means in a broken century like ours. The Vatican's endorsement broke the ice. But what came next was a global domino effect. World leaders, often divided by ideology, found themselves reacting to a man whose politics could not be easily boxed in. France, Burkina Faso's former colonial ruler, responded with cautious respect. President Anne-Luc Marot, known for her technocratic centrism, said, "We may not agree with many of Mr. Traoré's methods, but we can't ignore the results. He is writing a new chapter in Africa's story with action, not aid." It was a diplomatic acknowledgement from a country still wrestling with its colonial legacy, forced to face a new era where Africa speaks and acts on its own terms. In Washington, U.S. Secretary of State Janet R. Collins offered a more careful statement. "We respect the nomination and recognize Mr. Traoré's efforts for regional stability in the Sahel. This is a moment for the international community to reconsider what 21st century peace really means." But beneath the polished language was a clear subtext. Traoré's bottom-up strategy, rejecting IMF loans, banning foreign mining operations, and taking control of food policy, quietly pushed back against the mainstream economic world order. Brazil under President Luiz G. Costa was far more direct. A longtime admirer of anti-colonial leaders, Costa said, "I called him the new Sankara, but he corrected me. He said, 'I am just a farmer in uniform.' That is when I knew he deserved the Nobel." Costa's words struck a deep chord across the global South, forming a symbolic link between Latin America's struggles and Africa's revival. In Moscow, Russia's president chose to highlight Traoré's practical legacy. He is a builder not of ideologies but of food systems, schools, and belief. These reactions were not just political commentary. They reflected a changing world order. For decades, Africa had been a battleground for outside powers. Traoré transformed that battleground into farmland, into classrooms, into hope. And the world, even those hesitant to say it, was starting to take notice. Night falls over Ouagadougou, yet the city refuses to sleep. From the airport road to Thomas Sankara Square, tens of thousands gather beneath homemade lanterns chanting a single name. Ibrahim Traoré. Vendors sell cups of bicep and roasted peanuts while drummers pound a rhythm older than the nearby moss-avered colonial statues. A hand-painted banner stretched between two acacia trees reads, "We no longer beg. Now the world comes to us." For many Burkinabe, the news broke like a sudden rain at the end of the dry season. Radio booths crackled with callers shouting, "Sacrée Victoire." Mothers wept openly, not from sorrow but from relief. Their children now attend the new neighborhood schools Traoré built, and they no longer fear the thunder of militant gunfire at night. In villages along the Nadinon River, former fighters now clad in overalls labeled "Farmers of Peace" fired up diesel pumps to irrigate maize instead of manning checkpoints. Beyond Burkina Faso, celebrations echoed across the Sahel in Name and Bamako youth collectives projected cell phone videos of Traoré onto public walls chanting, "One Sahel, one dream." Local Africa news correspondents reported impromptu dance circles spinning past midnight. Even in drought hamlets where electricity flickers off at dusk, the message was simple. If a country ranked among the world's poorest can reclaim its dignity, so can they. Not everyone joined the jubilation. Some elders worried aloud that global recognition brings fresh geopolitical pressure. Yet even skeptics admitted the facts. Terror attacks down farm, yields up clinics, open children fed. They witnessed neighbors, once divided by ethnicity, now joining hands to plant saplings 5 at a time. Each seedling tagged with the words "Liberté, Travail, Dignité." On the 27th of July, just one day after the Nobel Peace Prize nomination was announced, the leaders of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger appeared together at a historic press conference in Ouagadougou. With solemn expressions and unwavering voices, they issued a joint declaration, calling the nomination of Traoré not a personal glory but proof that Africa can break free from a history written by others. They declared a new phase of regional cooperation beyond military alliances, to include agriculture, education, public health, and local media. A new institution, the Joint Civil Command of the Sahel, was announced to coordinate programs for food security, post-conflict resettlement, and rural medical infrastructure. At the same time, neighboring countries like Guinea, Chad, and Togo sent official congratulations hinting that Traoré's model of self-reliance, regional solidarity, and rejection of foreign debt could become a new blueprint for African development within the African Union. Debate quickly intensified. Many delegates urged the AU to reconsider its rapid response mechanism, originally designed to isolate governments that came to power via military coups. One political commissioner who spoke anonymously told the press, "We cannot keep judging leaders by how they rise to power. We must judge them by the roads they build for their people." In Europe and the United States, diplomats cautiously acknowledged Traoré's growing legitimacy. While they maintained concern over democratic norms, several envoys expressed respect for the region's sovereign path. Quietly, some international lenders have even reopened communication channels with Burkina Faso, something unthinkable just months ago when the country cut ties with the IMF. The Nobel nomination has become something far larger than a prize. It is a symbolic turning point, an announcement to the world that Africa is no longer speaking with borrowed voices. This time the continent is speaking for itself, and the world, perhaps, for the first time in generations, is finally listening. In a spontaneous speech from the balcony of the presidential palace, Traoré addressed the crowd. "This nomination is not mine alone. It belongs to every mother who fed a child from her own field, to every youth who picked up a shovel instead of a rifle, to every teacher who taught under a tree. We are building peace not to impress the world, but to survive." Students and youth movements, university campuses across Africa erupted in solidarity. In Bamako, Niamey, Accra, and Kinshasa, students held forums and vigils. On social media, the hashtag Nobel for Africa trended globally, with young Africans demanding more recognition for leaders who worked the land instead of the lecture circuit. In Lagos, a student activist tweeted, "Traoré did not wear a suit. He wore boots. He didn't go to Davos. He went to the fields. That's why this Nobel matters." In Johannesburg University, students organized an art exhibit titled Fields of Peace, showcasing paintings, installations, and poetry inspired by Traoré's agricultural revolution. Pan-African support leaders from Mali, Niger, Guinea, and Chad issued a joint statement. "If he wins, it is not the victory of one man. It is the vindication of a continent. A farmer president is more powerful than a president in exile. A well-fed village is stronger than a foreign loan." Pan-African media called it a turning point. Several newspapers described the nomination as a slap to the old order, not just of global politics, but of how Africa is seen and how Africa sees itself. On the 10th of December 2025, the eyes of the world will turn to Oslo. On that day, one name will be etched into the legacy of the Nobel Peace Prize. For millions across Africa, hope carries a single face: Ibrahim Traoré. At 36 years old, he represents a new generation of leadership, neither beholden to foreign creditors nor shaped by Western think tanks. If awarded, Traoré would become the first sitting African head of state to win the Nobel Peace Prize. The first leader nominated despite rising to power through a military transition. A global symbol of what some are calling practical peace. Not negotiated in hotel ballrooms, but sown into fields, classrooms, and clinics. But whatever the outcome in Oslo, one thing is certain. The story of Traoré has already shifted the global conversation. He is not just a candidate for the Nobel. He is a mirror to the contradictions of our time and a reminder that peace is not the absence of war, but the presence of justice, dignity, and land in the hands of those who till it. As the final decision nears, the world is watching not just to see who wins, but to understand what peace truly means in the 21st century.